So you're looking to change the spark plug on your lawnmower. It can be any lawnmower. It doesn't have to be a lawn boy. It can be any push or self-propelled mower. It's going to be very, very similar. One thing you need to find out, though, is what type of spark plug does it take? What spark plug does yours take? Well, it's going to come down to what engine you have and what model of mower it is. Mine, you can see the number right there at the top, and oddly enough, the spark plug I took out is not the same number. This one is the one that's factory spec. The one that's in there, well, may have been the reason this thing's sputtering just a little bit. So let's show you how to take that spark plug out and put a new one in no time flat. That thing's going to be running good. So to find the model number to find out what spark plug you need, usually there's a model number for your mower itself, the whole thing. And then there's a model number for the engine, which I'm not sure I can get you to see. You can see the barcode. It's kind of tucked up under there. Usually the model number for the engine is located pretty close to the spark plug. So once you find the spark plug, which has a spark plug boot on it, sometimes they're at the front, sometimes they're at the back of the engine, sometimes they're on top of the engine sides, whatever. They always have this little boot on it, this rubber boot. And if this part is hard to pull off, mine's going to come off pretty easily. If that's really hard to come off of there, spray that little boot with some WD-40, not a ton of it, but just get a little bit of it soaked onto the boot. See if you can get the WD-40 straw to get inside of that while it's still on there. Might be a tough way to go about it, but see if you can try, and that'll loosen this up. Wait a couple minutes and then go back at it again. So, once you've got this off, then you are going to need at least a deep well socket to get to that usually. You cannot do this with like an adjustable wrench or anything. You're going to need a deep socket. I've got a spark plug specific socket right here on my gear wrench ratchet. This is what I usually like doing. Some spark plugs are this size, 13/16. Some are smaller, some are much smaller. It's just going to determine which size they decide to go with from factory. That's the size deep socket you're going to need. Put that on the end of a ratchet. Mine is a rotating head ratchet, which is nice and convenient at times. I'll show you why. It's lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, okay? And if the spark plug is really difficult to move, well, you've got a couple choices. I'm going to go through the process here first, and then I'll explain your choices if it doesn't want to move. All right, mine wants to go easily. This is why I really like rotating head ratchets. You can put them straight like that, and then rotating it kind of like a screwdriver until it comes out of there like that, real fast and easy. So you can see, this is my old spark plug. It's pretty dirty at the top. It's pretty gunked up. And like I said earlier, it's not the right numbers. It's not the right one for this mower. It's an 861 Eco, probably sold at a big box store as the replacement for the one that's originally supposed to go in there. I had to go to a lawnmower repair shop to pick up the right one. Usually hardware stores that specialize in lawnmowers, they might still have the back stock of the good ones. Before you go too far, grab a Q-tip and clean out the boot inside of here. If it's real nasty, you might have to spend a little bit of time on it. Mine's pretty clean. Just grab a Q-tip, wiggle around in there. You don't have to go crazy, and you can see not much is coming out on mine, so mine's pretty clean. Another thing people like to do is just spritz a little WD-40 in there. Not much, a little tiny amount. If it's too much, like I just did, drip it out. And then I'm going to clean it out a little bit with the Q-tip. Now you can see like some more junk has come out after I spritzed it. So we're just going to keep doing that a little bit. Okay, and I'd call that clean. WD-40, you don't really have to worry about that. If you think there's too much in there, you can try to wipe it out or let it dry a little bit more longer. If you bought the factory spec spark plug, it's probably within gap. The gap means the space between that little electrode and the metal piece at the top there, okay? A spark plug gap tool. So you put it on the thinnest part of the gapper, and then you rotate the spark plug until it stops. You don't have to rotate really hard, but you can see it's right at the 030. That is my spark plug gap spec for this, so I don't have to do anything to it. I'll show you the one I took out. All that soot in there has managed to close that gap a little. I can't even get it on the tool. I'll force it on there. Okay, so now I've forced it on the tool. So if you did have to gap it, what you do is you kind of wiggle it back and forth just a little bit on there to open up the gap. Just keep wiggling, keep wiggling, keep wiggling. And then you get it to there. That would now be at 030. If you went too far and you got to pinch it again, you can use the top like this to kind of press down on it just a little, and then you go back and you check it again. There's other ways to do this. There's other tools to do this. There's other techniques. This is the way I've always done it with one of these cheap little quarter-looking things. Once you're convinced you've got the right spark plug and the correct spark plug gap, you You can go the extra step and put anti-seize on the threads. I wouldn't put much of it on here. You have such few threads anyway, but it stops the new spark plug from kind of welding itself in there. Well, you can see mine's already coming out by itself. Look at that. That's way too much as is. So I'm just going to like dab just a couple of threads in there. That's too much. I'm going to have to wipe some of that off. There's pressure in that tube, so it kind of spit it out faster than I was anticipated. What I don't want is it getting close to that electrode at all, so I'm going to keep wiping this. Okay, I've got a sufficient amount, like a tiny little dab that will rotate itself in there and cover the rest of the threads on this. I'm also going to go one extra step and clean out the threads inside of here with a Q-tip. Not going to go crazy, just a couple wipes, but you can see how nasty that is. So that helps clean up the inside of the chamber there a little bit too. Okay, brand new spark plug, gapped correctly with a little bit of anti-seize on there. That's an added step that you don't have to do. I often don't on my own equipment. It's because I change the spark plugs enough to know that they're not going to seize usually. So you just rotate that in a little bit by hand. Don't touch that end bit here, the end metal piece. You want that to be pretty darn clean. And then get your ratchet back on there. Careful with that anti-seize. I got it all over my fingers because it went all over my ratchet. All right, so get your ratchet back on the spark plug, and when you're tightening it, you really only need to go till you feel a little bit of resistance, and then go just maybe a quarter of a turn more. That's good. These do not need to be super tight. Once you got that, grab your boot, put it on there, and then you got to push till you hear a click. There we go. If you don't push till you hear a click and you just kind of set it on there, you're going to get barely any spark. That's not going to start at all. So you got to push it on there and then give it till you hear the click.
Give it till you hear the click.
So the new spark plug is in there, gapped correctly with the spark plug wire boot back on it, ready to fire up. Let's see if this thing runs. Less than a couple minutes. All you really need is the spark plug and the correct socket and ratchet to get that thing out. Once it's out, you can just screw the new one back in. Hopefully it's gapped correctly. If you got to go the extra steps, make sure you check the gap. 2, clean the boot. 3, put a little anti-seize on those threads so that it'll never stick like crazy again in there. So there it is. Spark plug in, spark plug out, boot on. Hey, if you enjoyed yourself, make sure you subscribe.
Give it till you hear the click.